Hello, Internet. I am just one more voice, and I would like to talk to you today about the hypocrisy of the modern day leftist movement. Now, before we start, I'd like to go ahead and point out the fact that while I may be a registered Republican, I actually do tend to lean left on most social issues. Any issue that involves personal freedom or anything that doesn't hurt another human being or stop them from performing their own, or stop them from, expressing themselves in any way that doesn't harm or otherwise prevent another from expressing themselves. I tend to lean left, although I have been noticing a very disturbing trend within the leftist movement. This trend is, it's been dominating the news cycle for a little while, and to be perfectly honest, it could be a little bit better covered. But I'd like to point out just a little bit of something I've noticed, is that there's been a growing hypocrisy among those who practice the modern day form of leftism, which is now known as social justice. Now, obviously, there's a story behind every story, but I'm just going to go ahead and point out a couple of things that have been done recently. Now, I'm sure all of you are aware, but Donald Trump has a family, and the president, and Obama had a family, and Bush had a family, and for the most part, these people are off limits. It is incredibly distasteful to attack the family of a president-elect, presidential candidate, or sworn-in president. It's just in terrible taste, especially if they're young. It's just not something that you do. The sins of the father are not the sins of the children. The sins of the children are the sins of the children. And in the case of 10-year-old Baron Trump, the sins of this child are nowhere to be seen. And yet, oh dear. So, the modern leftist movement, particularly, Katie Rich, more famously, they really have been going after these people. They have been, again, in the case of Katie Rich, goading a 10-year-old into attempting to murder his parents. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say that statement again. A very prominent voice in the leftist movement, after all, writers, producers, commentators, these people are the voice of a movement. And by supporting them, by watching their shows, by retweeting, reblogging, sharing their videos, you are supporting these people, you are supporting their voice. You are telling them, yes, this is the kind of thing I believe in. This person basically hoped that a 10-year-old child, or was goading a 10-year-old child to murder their parents. And then, of course, she did this, just jumping onto it. I don't know what the reasoning is, and I'm not going to guess at her reason. I'm not a mind reader. But she did it very flagrantly. Now, this does tell me one thing about it. Though I can't guess at her intent, I can look at this and say she thought she was going to get away with it, or at the very least she thought that no one would care, that this is normal. Now, the only reason that people think that this is normal is if they think it's permissible. Really think about that. Attacking a 10-year-old. This is a woman who's in her 30s attacking a 10-year-old child. And then immediately afterwards, of course, not immediately afterwards, she waited until everyone started coming down on her for it, because after all, America, while it does have its problems, is a nation of good people. It is a nation of good people. And when people started coming down on her, she immediately posted a retraction saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I really, I didn't mean it." And my response to that personally is that I must look at her and I say, no, you cannot play the innocent card after you attack an innocent. There is a reason that children are off limits. Children are off limits for a handful of reasons. One, it's highly unlikely that they've actually done anything worthy of going after. Now, granted, there are some extremely rare cases in which children do horrific things, but these are very few and far between. And the second reason that children are off limits is because they don't understand the consequences of their actions to the same extent that an adult does. This is why the interaction between children and adults is limited, or if not limited, structured by strict rules on the part of the adults. because they cannot interact with an adult on even footing. Now, this writer, Katie Rich, she attacked this 10-year-old thinking to herself, oh, this is fine, I'm just going to go ahead and do this, I'm going to go ahead and make fun of him. Now, she may have been thinking, and this is my personal guess, she may have been thinking that she was attacking Trump, because, after all, the left has gone so far out of their way to demonize Trump, I'm honestly worried that they think a literal demon from the pits of hell has gotten into the White House. They may actually think that at this point in time. They may actually start believing their own propaganda. But maybe she thought that she was attacking Trump. Maybe she just thought that, this would be okay. Or maybe she thought that her actions weren't going to have any consequences and that, it was just going to be a funny joke. Now, the problem is that we can hold her accountable to her actions because she is a 30-year-old adult who has actually made it quite far in the real world. So clearly she has some capability behind her. Clearly she has some intelligence behind her. So yes, she will be held accountable for her actions, or at the very least, she should be. As every adult in the United States, or in the civilized world at least, is held accountable for their own actions. Now, I'm just posting a rambling video here, but I would like to go ahead and throw out the reverse. How would this have been received? How would this have been received if it was a right-wing writer or right-wing commentator attacking a young child? A 30-year-old writer attacking a young child. How would that have been received? I would imagine it would have been very poorly. They would have been absolutely eviscerated. It would have dominated the media cycle instead of just being a small blurb thrown out every now and again. This is where a bit of the hypocrisy comes in. A bit of the idea that it's okay if I do it because I'm doing it for the right reasons. That is one of the most dangerous ideological fallacies. That is one of the most dangerous ideas that you can hold in your head, or that a group of people can hold in their head, because it basically gives them permission to do anything. If you believe that you have the moral high ground, and that your opponents are so vile that anything you do to them is better than them coming into power, any transgression you might have, any damage you might do, pales in comparison to what will happen if your opposition gets in, then it will allow you to do nearly anything. It will allow you to, as the rioters in Berkeley have shown us, beat someone into unconsciousness with shovels, light things on fire, break buildings, break police barricades, set cars on fire, throw rocks at people, attack people giving interviews. Now, as for the young man who was punched, I honestly have very little sympathy for him. The man is a bit of an asshole. And I will get to that in a later video as to why he is. But, at the same time, you don't hit somebody who's giving an interview no matter how much of an asshole they are. This is one of the rules that our society operates on. You can't go around attacking people unless, of course, they are directly threatening someone else. Now, if it had been a prominent alt-leftist speaking, and someone had gone up and hit them, I would have basically had more or less the same idea. That, yes, they were probably an asshole, but no, they shouldn't be attacked while giving an interview. That's just not something that you do. If anything, if somebody has a absolutely out-there idea that's just so bad, like, for instance, the guy that was punched, his ideas are just so incredibly wrong that I want him to speak. I want him to speak and show everybody just how wrong he is. Because remember, if you let people speak long enough, and if you don't reprimand them for their ideas, they will eventually get closer and closer to what their true ideas are. You have to let them talk, you have to encourage them to talk, and you have to encourage them to share their ideas. Because one of three things is going to happen. Either one, they're going to say a wonderful idea. It's a great idea. Man, everyone should really adopt this idea. And that might pull us into the future. Or they're going to say an idea that is just so absolutely ludicrous that you jump in and say, no, 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 no. You're mistaken. Here, let us talk to you. Let us go ahead and share our idea, and then we can discuss which idea is better, logically speaking. Which idea has the best outcome? Or the third thing is going to happen, and they are going to reveal themselves to be holding such a horrific idea that it serves as an example of how not to act. This is why we need to allow people to share their thoughts and ideals so that we can find the best ones that will carry us forward into the best possible outcome, and so that we can cut the ones that simply will hold us back as a people. However, the left does not seem to share this idea anymore. They do not seem to think this way. They seem to think that anything other than them is a threat. Anything other than them is so damaging to everybody that they need to shut it down immediately. They can't let it be spoken. If anyone else did this, they would be screaming for blood. They would be absolutely mortified. They'd be horrified. But if they do it, it's okay, because they are the good guys. They have the moral high ground, and that is what makes them a terrible ideology at the moment. Now, getting on to a little bit more of their hypocrisy. Now, I'm sure the Donna Hilton thing has been done to death, but the Women's March featured someone who, while she did do her time, almost 30 years for her crime, which that is a very long time. That is longer than most people I know have been alive. So she did almost 30 years in jail for her crime, but her crime was that she kidnapped, her and several of her compatriots kidnapped a elderly man who was not the best of character, I will absolutely say that, but still, what she did was that she kidnapped him, and over the course of several weeks, tortured him, molested him, raped him, and then eventually killed him, and then after he was dead, attempted to ransom him. Now, this person does not show any hint of apology, Donna Hilton. She seems to, if anything, revel in the fact that she did this. I guess it makes her feel powerful that she was able to do that to another human being. After all, exercising cruelty over another without them giving retribution to you is a very sure way of exercising your power. It's a horrible way of doing it, but it is a very certain way to at least show it. Now, the left has embraced her as a hero and as a speaker and as a figurehead. Now, if the right had embraced somebody like this, had they embraced someone like this, it would be everywhere. They would be tearing this person down. They would be attacking them. They would be absolutely throwing stones at them in the streets. They would be demanding that they shut themselves down. But the right at the moment doesn't really have anyone like that. And that's because the right wing of this country simply doesn't have the permission to do so. And that's a good thing. We need to enforce these standards on everyone. However, if standards are only enforced on one group, then what's going to happen is the other group is going to begin exercising its ability to do wrong. And that is what we're seeing here today with the hypocrisy of the left-leaning parties of the United States of America. They are exercising their ability to do wrong simply because no one is calling them out on it. Or at the very least, the majority of mainstream media outlets is not calling attention to it. And just because they're not calling attention to it, they can do more or less what they want. Now, the good thing is that the majority of this country are decent people. Most of them, if you actually show what the left is doing, or some of the things that the left has done, they won't agree with it. Whether or not they're conservative or liberal, most of them will agree that we need to enforce standards of behavior on everyone equally. And that is the nature of this country. The United States of America, despite its foundings, despite its origins, we have become a nation that is attempting to strive for equality for all, which is a beautiful notion, one that we should pursue and continue to refine. And we're going to make mistakes along the way, because as a people, while we are a moderately intelligent species, or at the very least one of the most that we've seen so far on this planet at least, we have proven ourselves to fall victim to a number of fallacies, traps, and shortcomings when it comes to trying to figure out exactly what is the right answer. So we need to give ourselves some time. We need to not freak out. We need to not be driven to hysterics whenever a mistake is made in the past, present, or future. We need to recognize mistakes, and we need to correct them. That is the only way to move forward. Now, as far as the left goes, many ideas that come from the political left are good, such as getting rid of archaic laws that govern people's expression. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I've rambled on long enough, and I am running out of coffee, so I am just one more voice, and I hope to see you later.